Introduction: The Path of the Brave. In the age of emperors and empire, where Rome stretched her fingers across continents and gods were carved into stone, two sisters walked a different path, one of hidden courage and radiant light. This is the tale of Rufina and Secunda, noble by birth, yet greater still in spirit. Their story is not merely about martyrdom, but about love, loyalty, and a fire of faith that no blade could extinguish. Let us journey back to a time when believing in Christ was a dangerous act of defiance, and two young women dared to stand firm at the cost of everything. Chapter 1: Daughters of Rome, Daughters of Heaven. The sun rose over Rome, casting golden light upon marble columns and tiled roofs, warming the city of emperors and philosophers. In a domus nestled within the noble quarter, laughter echoed through open courtyards, woven with the sound of water flowing from sculpted fountains. This was the home of Rufina and Secunda, sisters not only by blood, but by spirit, raised in a house of privilege and power, yet destined for a glory far beyond what Roman titles could offer. They were the daughters of Asterius, a patrician of upright name and significant standing. Their childhood was one of refinement. They studied poetry and philosophy, learned the art of rhetoric and Roman virtue. Tutors taught them Latin and Greek, music and arithmetic, but it was their mother who planted in them the seed of a hidden truth, the gospel of Christ, passed in whispers through shadows, away from the watchful eyes of Rome's guardians. As the girls grew into young women, their beauty became legendary, spoken of at feasts and forums. Noblemen began to seek their hands, not only for their grace, but for the powerful alliances their family could bring. But neither Rufina nor Secunda dreamed of a life draped in silk and secure by politics. While they honored their family, their hearts burned for something greater, something unseen. In the cool silence of their chambers, away from the opulence of banquets and the clamor of Rome, the sisters read from scrolls smuggled into the city, writings of apostles, psalms of hope, letters to the faithful. They fasted, they prayed, and made secret vows. They wore no veils of mourning, but the invisible veil of consecration. They had chosen Christ, and in their hearts they were already brides, not of men, but of the Lord of heaven. One day, two noble suitors, Armentarius and Flavianus, came to their father, bringing gifts and promises. Both were of high rank, admired for their service to the empire. They had heard of the sisters' virtue and sought to claim it. With dignity, the proposal was accepted on their behalf, as was custom, and preparations began. But when the men spoke with Rufina and Secunda directly, they encountered not eagerness but gentle resistance. "We belong to another," Rufina said, standing in the garden among the laurel trees. "One whose kingdom is not of this world." Flavianus laughed, thinking Aquinas. "You speak in riddles, lady. Are we not worthy of your affection?" Secunda responded with grace, yet with fire behind her words. "You seek our hands, but our hearts are already given to Christ. We are Christians." The smile vanished. In that moment, honor turned to contempt and desire to wrath. Rome, for all her gods, could not tolerate the disciples of this crucified Galilean. Armentarius and Flavianus, wounded in pride and furious at the refusal, did what many had done before. They betrayed the followers of the way. Within days, officials came bearing scrolls marked with imperial wax. The sisters were accused of impiety, of following an illegal superstition, and of dishonoring Roman gods. Their household was searched, their scrolls burned, their servants interrogated. And then, under the cover of night, they were taken. But even in chains, they did not tremble. Though the world saw two delicate maidens led away by guards, heaven saw warriors stepping onto a battlefield. They had made their choice, not once, but daily, in every secret act of love, in every whispered prayer. And now, that choice will be tested by fire. They were not afraid, for their eyes were fixed on a crown not made by human hands. Chapter 2: The Choice of Fire. The prison was cold and damp, carved beneath the earth like a tomb meant for the living. The sisters were led through corridors chiseled from stone, walls slick with moisture, air thick with the stench of fear and rot. Yet they walked with heads held high, their steps sure, as though entering a sanctuary rather than a dungeon. There in the shadows they waited. Hours passed, then a day, then another. Soldiers came and went, offering them food and rest if they would, but renounced their faith. They received only silence and prayer. News of their arrest spread through the Christian underground like wildfire. Some wept, some fasted. Many feared the worst, but none were surprised. For among the small circles of the faithful, the courage of Rufina and Secunda had long been known. At last, they were summoned to the tribunal. The court was not in the open forum, but behind guarded doors, a secret place where punishments were meted out away from the eyes of the public. There, seated on a dais of polished stone, was the Roman prefect Junius. He had a reputation for cruelty and a particular disdain for Christians. To him, these trials were not merely duty, they were sport. The sisters were brought before him in simple robes, torn from their journey, their faces pale from the lack of light, but their eyes shone. He studied them with a mixture of curiosity and annoyance. "You are daughters of Rome," he said, "noble by blood. Why throw away your lives for this foolish superstition?" Rufina spoke first. "We do not throw away our lives. We offer them." Secunda added, "Our lives are not ours to guard. They belong to the one who gave them." Junius laughed, the sound cold and sharp. "You speak of the Galilean? The one crucified like a thief. What power does he have to save you now?" Rufina did not blink. "He conquered death." The prefect's amusement turned to fury. "Then let us see how much you are willing to suffer for him." He ordered Rufina to be scourged. The guards hesitated. Beating a noblewoman was not done lightly. But his glare was enough. They tied her hands above her, stretched her arms taut, and began. Secunda cried out, not in fear, but in intercession, "Lord, strengthen my sister. Do not let her body break before her spirit. Let us suffer together." The lashes tore into Rufina's back. Blood ran down her shoulders, staining the stone. She made no sound, only whispered the name of Christ between gasps. The soldiers paused, unnerved by her silence. But Junius only waved for them to continue. Afterward, she was thrown back into the cell, barely conscious. Secunda wrapped her arms around her and sang softly, an old hymn their mother used to teach them by candlelight. Her voice, though quiet, filled the chamber with peace. The next day, Junius offered Secunda a bargain. "Renounce your faith," he said, "and I will free you. I will dress you in fine silks, return you to your house, and forget you were ever here. Let your sister be the example. You can still live." Secunda looked at him, tears shining in her eyes, not for herself, but for the soul of the man before her. "I would rather die beside her," she said, "than live without Christ." Junius slammed his fist on the table. "Fools, you waste your youth and your names for a dead man." "No," Secunda said quietly. "We have chosen fire, not to be consumed, but to be purified." The sentence was sealed. They were to be taken outside the city, to the old stones of the Via Cornelia, where the bones of other martyrs lay hidden beneath the dust. Their execution would not be public. Rome was tired of blood in the streets, but their fate was no less final. As they were led from the cell, Rufina stumbled. Secunda caught her, supporting her with one arm. "I am here," she whispered. "And so is he," Rufina replied. Together, they stepped into the dawn, where the fire of their choice awaited, not a fire that destroys, but one that refines. Chapter 3. Flames of Faith. The road to the place of execution was lined with the silent witnesses of history. Ancient stones cracked and worn by centuries of wind and rain, whispering tales of sacrifice and courage. Rufina and Secunda walked side by side, their feet echoing softly on the dusty Via Cornelia, the path that had seen countless souls depart this world with a steadfast gaze toward eternity. Though their bodies were weak from pain and deprivation, their spirits burned brighter than ever. They held on to each other, a silent pact of sisterhood and faith forged in the crucible of suffering. Behind them, the guards kept watch, but the sisters were no longer captive in heart or mind. They belonged to a realm beyond Rome's reach, a kingdom ruled not by emperors, but by the eternal king. As the sun climbed higher, the crowd gathered in hushed anticipation, not crowds of mockery, but of awe. Among them were secret believers, cloaked in shadow, who dared to witness the final stand of these two brave souls. Others, curious or cruel, looked on with the eyes of the empire, expecting to see fear, despair, or defeat. But Rufina and Secunda gave them none of these. Before the flames were lit, Secunda turned to Rufina, her voice steady and clear. "No matter what happens, remember, our death is not the end. It is the beginning of life eternal." Rufina nodded, her lips trembling. "Our faith is our shield. Our love for him is our sword." The executioner, a man hardened by years of carrying out the empire's will, approached with a bundle of dry wood. The flicker of flames sparked to life, casting long shadows on the sisters' faces. But as the fire grew, so did the serenity in their eyes. The flames climbed, licking at their feet, but the sisters stood firm. The guards expected screams and pleas, but only heard prayers, songs of hope and victory whispered into the wind. It was as if the fire itself recoiled before the purity of their souls, unable to consume what was already consumed by divine love. Witnesses spoke later of a strange light that surrounded them, a radiance not born of fire, but of faith. The air seemed charged, the very ground beneath their feet humming with the power of God. When the flames finally claimed their earthly forms, it was with a gentle hush, as if heaven itself had gathered to welcome two new saints. The city of Rome remained silent, but a new story was born, a story that would be told in whispered prayers and hymns for generations to come. Rufina and Secunda were no longer mere daughters of Rome. They were daughters of heaven, martyrs whose courage had carved a path for countless others to follow. Chapter 4. The Legacy of Light. Though Rufina and Secunda's bodies had been consumed by flames, their story was far from extinguished. From the ashes of their martyrdom rose a flame of hope that could never be snuffed out. Their courage became a beacon, shining across the shadows of a world steeped in fear and uncertainty. Word of their sacrifice spread quickly through the secret communities of Christians in Rome. Mothers whispered their names to their children. Priests told their tale in hidden gatherings. Artists painted their faces, immortalizing the sisters' serene strength even in death. Each retelling was a thread, weaving a tapestry of faith and fortitude that would inspire generations. Their father, Asterius, once proud of worldly honors, found his heart transformed. The grief of loss opened a door to a deeper understanding. He sought out the believers, questioned the faith that his daughters had so bravely embraced. Through tears and prayer, Asterius came to see the truth his daughters had lived and died for, a truth that no empire could silence. Pilgrims began to visit the Via Cornelia, where the martyrs' ashes were said to rest beneath the earth. Many reported miracles. Wounds healed, hearts strengthened, spirits lifted. A woman who had suffered for years with a limp suddenly walked freely. A grieving father found peace after praying at their tomb. A soldier hardened by war wept for the first time in decades. The church recognized their sacrifice, and Rufina and Secunda were honored as saints, their feast day celebrated with reverence and joy. The path they had walked, once a lonely road to suffering, became a pilgrimage route, a trail of courage for those who seek to stand firm in their faith. But their greatest legacy was not in stone or ceremony. It was in the countless lives changed by their example. The young girl who chose kindness over cruelty, the prisoner who refused to betray his beliefs, the family who found unity through faith despite persecution. In a world ruled by power and fear, Rufina and Secunda showed that true strength comes from love and sacrifice. Their story became a rallying cry, a reminder that even in the darkest times, light can break through. And as centuries passed, their names remained etched not only in history, but in the hearts of all who dare to believe. Chapter 5. Saints of the Eternal Road. The names Rufina and Secunda echoed far beyond the boundaries of Rome, carried by whispers, prayers, and a steady beat of hearts emboldened by their example. They became more than martyrs. They were symbols, saints of the eternal road, guiding countless souls through trials and darkness toward the light of salvation. Their story was not confined to a single moment of sacrifice, but grew like a living flame, passed from hand to hand across generations. Monks in distant monasteries recited their story as a testament of unwavering faith. Pilgrims traced their steps along the Via Cornelia, seeking courage to face their own battles. In art and scripture, they appeared as sisters united not only by blood, but by an unbreakable bond of spiritual kinship. Their lives became a lesson in courage, a narrative of how two young women faced death not with fear, but with the fierce joy of those who know their souls belong to God. Yet, beyond the grandeur and reverence, the true power of Rufina and Secunda lay in their humanity. They were sisters who laughed, who prayed together, who comforted each other in darkness. Their martyrdom was not a distant myth, but a deeply human story of love, sacrifice, and unyielding faith. Through the centuries, countless believers have drawn strength from their example. When oppression threatened to silence voices of faith, Rufina and Secunda's story reminded them that even the smallest light could pierce the darkest night. Their feast day became a celebration not just of their deaths, but of life lived fully, courageously, with purpose and devotion. Churches were built in their honor, and their relics guarded as treasures of divine grace. And so, the legacy of Rufina and Secunda endures, an eternal flame burning bright in the hearts of all who walk the path of faith, hope, and love. A light that never fades. As we conclude the story of Saints Rufina and Secunda, we are reminded that true courage and faith shine brightest in the darkest moments. Their sacrifice is more than a memory. It is a living light, guiding us through life's trials with hope and strength. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history and faith. If you found inspiration in their story, please consider subscribing to our channel for more tales of courage, devotion, and the heroes of holiness. May the legacy of Rufina and Secunda inspire your own path, and may their light never fade from your heart.